Hi. In this video, I'm going to be showing you a weapon for white against the Najdorf. After e4, c5, knight f3, d6, and d4, we go into the open Sicilian, and after takes, knight f6, knight c3, and a6, we get the Najdorf, which is probably the most common opening you'll face if you play e4 as white. So here, black, um, black's a6 move is meant to stop any piece from coming to b5, so he can play e5 on the next move without worrying about a check or even a knight to b5. So white's main moves here are bishop e3, bishop g5, bishop e2, and then recently there's uh, this move h3, which I think is really interesting for white. And so here after h3, which is my recommendation, Uh, Black's main try and best try is e5, which will be the subject of today's video. The moves e6 and g6 are also there, but they're a lot less common. So in this video, I'll be covering the main move e5. And here, I recommend knight e2. Knight f3 and knight b3 are also moves here. But the point of knight e2 is that we're gonna try to play g4 and knight to g3 and then gain really good control of the king side. And if we manage to do that, our position will be superior. So that's why h5 is the main move here. But I don't think many opponents, especially at uh, lower levels, will know this. So you can already get a very good position as white. Let's say they play b5, you can play knight g3 here. Against b5, g4 is less accurate because after b4 and knight d5, um, here black gets b4 quickly, and we already played g4, so it's very committal. Instead, after b5, we can play knight g3, and after b4 here, we can play knight d5, and here this is a much better version for white, and because we didn't overcommit with g4, but we still have a very good position here. So let's say white plays knight d7 here. We can play a4, b4, knight d5, and put a bishop on c4. And for example, something that can happen, an example line is takes, queen e2, knight e4, and takes, d5. Black uses this tactic to take and play d5, and then after takes, bishop e3, bishop e7, and castles, king b1, we get a position where, okay, white is technically down a pawn, but he has more than enough compensation, and his position is actually better here because it's very hard for black to break through this blockade on the queen side, while we have good attacking play on the king side. So queen c7 is also there. For example, we can play bishop d3, castles, and just develop normally, where at one point we can play b4, and if he a4 and if black plays b4, we can play c3 and get control of the b5 square. Let's say bishop b7, then we can play bishop d5 and knight h5. And here, black is having issues because we can play knight d5 and put a lot of pressure on this f6 knight. So let's say bishop e7 is played instead, then we can play g4 here. And let's say after castles, we can play bishop g2, knight g3, and g5, followed by h4. If black plays h6, we can play bishop g2, knight g3, and bishop e3, and we'll still have a very good position. If black plays bishop e6 here, G4. If H6, once again, we can just play bishop G2, E3, queen D2 is an option, and here A4 is another key move, just limiting black on the queen side. And we'll just play the standard moves with knight G3 and so on. And like white has a very good position here. Something to keep in mind is that if after bishop G6 and bishop E6 and G4, D5 doesn't work here because after takes, knight takes, and bishop G2, if black takes on D3, C3, we can take on D8 and take back, and then we have a very good endgame because our bishop is unopposed on the long diagonal, and it's hard. Uh, Black's king is misplaced, so it's Black's position is very like awkward. So bishop b4 is there, but we get the same thing with this time we have double pawns, but in return we have the bishop pair, and white is better in this endgame. Those are black's sidelines. Of course, h5 is the best option for black, and here white should play g3 and follow it up with bishop g2 and continue trying to control the central squares. Here in a sideline, or the less common move for black is bishop b6, and after bishop g2, if black develops, um, then okay, well it'll be the same thing as if black played bishop e7 followed by bishop e6, but let's say he does just go for this normal setup where he just develops his bishops. We can play a4 and then e3 here, b3 here, and the point of b3 is to be able to play bishop e3 without worrying about knight b6 and having to get kicked out. So we play b3, knight c5, castles, rook c8, bishop b3, and yeah, white has a very comfortable position. For example, this is how the game can like continue, and yeah, it's very easy for white to play, I think. So after bishop e6 and bishop g2, let's say knight d7, then we can play a4, and we'll get a very similar position. If after bishop g2, b5, then we should play a4, b4, and knight d5, and here knight takes d5, e takes, bishop f5, c3, and we can get a comfortable position. After takes, and we'll get a pawn in a5 and a very nice space advantage. So let's say after these moves, white is doing very good here. Instead of knight takes d5, if a5, then we can get uh, c3, and then after knight a6, bishop e3, castles, we can get f4, and white is comfortable here. So bishop e7 is the main move, and after bishop g2, black's best option is b5, but if he plays knight to d7, we can play a4, and I'll show you some example lines. Let's say b6, we can put the knight on d5, and after takes, we play c4, and after f5, we can meet f5 with f4, and we have a nice space advantage, and I think this position is easier to play with white. Let's say black plays h4, we can play a5, limiting the queen side, or like expanding on the queen side, and then we have this idea of b4, where where after b4 here, knight e6 and castles, we can play bishop b6 next, and here the b4 pawn isn't really weak, and it's actually like White's position is nice here. He's has a lot of space on the queen side and in the center. So instead of knight d7, bishop e6, we already looked at that earlier, but it's the same. It ends up in the same position here. But b5 is the best move and most common move here. If your opponent knows what they're doing, we should play knight d5 here. If you castle first, then we have to play knight d5 eventually, and once we do, then black can develop his rook to b8, which is a better square than if we do it now, where black has to put the rook on a7. And if we don't put our knight on d5 at all, then this knight won't find any use, and it'll be just like bad on e2. So that's why we play knight d5. So ideally we can play knight c3 and support it. So after takes rook a7 and bishop a3, bishop e3, black should play bishop rook b7. If he plays bishop b6, this is only helping white, because our goal in this position is, our main plan is to play queen d2 to get our queen off the d5 square so we can use it with our knight. And black doesn't really need to develop his bishop to e6, so it looks like he's gaining a tempo, but really he's only helping us. Let's say after castles first, queen c8 and f4. Now we can see this bishop is not well placed here because we're threatening f5. So it's better for black to stay flexible and just play rook b7. And here, queen d2 and castles are the main moves, but those lead to uh, either long lines where it ends up in a draw anyways, just off repetition or something else, and or they also lead to like positions where I think it's like unclear what white should do. It's the engine says it's equal or very slightly better for white, but it's unclear of what to do as white because white doesn't really have a plan, while black at least has like long-term ideas of advancing his queen side. So I think g4 here is a good try, and it's not common at all. It's only been played in one or two games, but it's a dangerous option, I think. Black's move to equalize bishop g5, but some other natural moves that wouldn't be end so well for him were is takes, and we would get till castle long, and here we're down a pawn, but we managed to open up the queen side, the king side before castling to the queen side, and that means like black's king is going to be weak forever, and white has good play here. If h4 here, trying to close the king side, we can play queen d2, and then we can go for this we can probably go for this knight c3, knight d5 stuff now, where since black already committed to h4, we have a better version as if we play queen d2 immediately. Let's say in a normal move like knight d7, that would allow takes, and queen d2, where once again we open the king side before we castle long, and black's king is going to be weak. So queen a5 is a decent option for black, where we play bishop g2, queen c7, and we defend c2. And after takes, castles long, takes. This position is once again promising for white, but it's objectively should be around balanced because black managed to trade off some pieces. But I think it's a lot easier to play from the white side because black's king is never really going to feel safe. Instead, bishop g5 is the best move, and it leads to like an objectively equal endgame, where after takes knight g3, we attack the h5 pawn. Um, Black also has to deal with the threat on d6, so he defends it, and after takes bishop e6, we can gain a tempo on the queen with h4 before we trade it off with queen d2. And takes knight c6. We can trade off the bishop on our bishop on g2 for the bishop on e6, which is a good trade for us because this bishop on g2 is bad. And here we take, and we're up a pawn, but like black should get that back. Let's say after knight d4. Okay, if first of all black just plays carelessly, the pawn um will end up being like a long-term asset for us, even though it's doubled, because a pawn is a pawn. So black needs to play accurately here and play knight d4, and after c3, knight e6, where he's going to play knight f4 and regain the pawn. We can preemptively move the rook back to h1, and after knight f4, uh, we can play knight f5, knight takes h5, a4 takes, and king c2. Here, this endgame, like I said, is objectively equal, but there's still play left in the position, and it's not a dead draw. So I think this position is a better result than trying to go for one of the main lines with queen d2 or castles, which are very theoretical and often lead to positions where white isn't doing that great and he has like an unclear position, or it's just a dead draw. So that's the line with that's the line with knight t2, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. See you next time.